Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. And happy Monday, or at least it's Monday here in Japan. It's probably Sunday in most other places in the world right now, but it'll be Monday soon enough. We had a nice weekend here in Tokyo. Yesterday we went down to, the Shinjuku Gyoen, or Meiji Gyoen, Shinjuku Gyoen Park, which is a large park located next to Shinjuku. That's kind of, it says Shinjuku Gyoen, it's probably next to Shinjuku. It's a very large and beautiful park, one of a few of the really nice parks which we have here in Tokyo. And we decided to go here yesterday looking for a place to go cycling. And we ended up spending a wonderful day at the park. We had about an hour worth of rain during the day, which blew off and left the rest of the day really wonderful. If you happen to come to Tokyo and you want a little bit of, I guess, a taste of nature inside the city, the Shinjuku Gyoen Park is a wonderful place to visit. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the subject of today's video, and probably one which you've never seen before. This is a Petri half frame camera, which was manufactured way back in 1960, and kind of an interesting looking thing. I don't know, it looks like something you might see from an old, 60s episode of Batman. The kind of interesting design and the layout and the colors and things like that. A really cool camera. Petri was kind of known for not making the most expensive cameras of its day, but making up for, I guess, the lack of high-end reputation by making more interesting designs. And this is certainly an example of one of those cameras. A lot of camera makers were, of course, making half-frame cameras around 1960. Olympus kind of created the half-frame bandwagon in 1958 with its original pen, and it was such a wonderful success that makers pretty much everywhere began making half-frame cameras to kind of tap into the market. And Petri wasn't going to be left behind, and they came up with a really interesting design for a half-frame camera, and it's pretty much was very different from anything else which was on the market at the time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, and functions. And first we'll go ahead and take a look at the top of the camera. It's kind of got an interesting convex shape, almost like the shape of an element of a lens. It's a pretty cool design. It makes it easy to handle, nice flat, somewhat flat on the back with just a little bit of a curve to it, and a more pronounced curve to the front. We have a film rewind knob here made out of aluminum with an arrow telling you which way to point it. We have a shoe for mounting a flash gun, but kind of odd thing compared to other cameras, half-frame cameras, or pretty much any other camera, was the location of the flash sink, which is located here on the top. Now, the only time I've seen flash sink like this is, say, old, I don't know what we call FSU cameras like Zorkis and FEDs or early Leicas, which were converted or had adapted to use a flash. And sometimes they stuck it on the front or the other side of the front or the top in different places, wherever they could find a place to tuck in the mechanism. Petri decided to put it in the top. And I think that they did that because this winding mechanism made it a little bit difficult to mount it to the lens or to the front of the camera. Over here we have the shutter release button, which accepts a standard cable release. Here we have a kind of integrated film counter and I guess film indicator as well. You count the film by looking through the window at the top where my finger is pointed, and then there's a little dial here which is arranged in a couple of colors, black and red and green. So we have, of course, monochrome, black and white on this side, and color on this side. So if you would use black film, you would push the black pointer here and you would line it up with whatever film speed you were using. And if you use color, you would line up the color arrow with whatever speed you are using. This is just a reminder, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the operation of the camera. You can set this to whatever setting you like. The camera will operate the same either way. This is just to let you know what kind of film you have. And in times when people sometimes had more than one camera or used different kinds of film, they needed to be reminded what kind of film was in it, so when they were using their handheld light meter or guesstimating the light, they would have a quick reference to use. The back of the camera, we have this interesting eyepiece here with this really cool design here. I really like the way that Petri designed these cameras. And this one here, though it has kind of the wacky Petri design, it seems to have a more quality feel to it than some of their larger 35mm cameras. I like the design of it, and it doesn't look cheap. It looks odd, but it doesn't look cheap in the way that some of the other cameras, those are Petri, Taron, and some of the less expensive brands. It's actually pretty interesting. The feel of the quality in this, the leatherette, the paint, and also the chrome finish. Petri did a really good job on this camera. On the bottom here, we have a standard 1/4-inch tripod release, and over here we have the button which you press to unlock the winding mechanism, so that then you can rewind the film. And we have the tab for opening the film door here on this side. You have to pull this upward and pop the door open like so. And you can see very small opening here because this is a half-frame camera. When you're loading the film, make sure to pull up on the winding dial. Drop your film cartridge in here, push this back down, pull your film meter across and feed it into the slot on the take-up spool. Wind it up and then just wind and fire the shutter until the film is being caught on the teeth on the take-up spool, and the teeth are in the holes in the top and bottom of the film. On the front of the camera, the very first thing we have is the winding mechanism. And this uses a trigger winder, which was quite popular in the late 1950s and around 1960 or so, but which kind of gave way to spring-loaded or electronic film winding mechanisms later on. This is kind of an interesting thing. This is quite sharp. You don't want to kind of jab yourself with this, so make sure when you're not using the camera to hold it up. And also when you're putting it in your pocket, put it this way down. If you're carrying it in the pocket and not this way down, if you put it this way down, it might come out. If you have it in the pocket this way, it still might kind of catch and grab a hold of your pocket as you're trying to get it out. This particular camera, when I got it, it was working fine. Then all of a sudden it stopped working. And right now the shutter is not releasing and I can't wind it. So I've got to take it apart and figure out what went wrong. Kind of thing with these cameras, they have kind of a timing mechanism between the winding mechanism and the shutter mechanism, and sometimes this gets out of phase. So the shutter doesn't think it's charged, but the winder is charged, and so it doesn't work, and I have to figure out exactly where this intermediate gear or pawl or whatever is. It's probably stuck or the spring has come off, so I'll take the camera apart and fix it and hopefully get it back into working order again. We have a interesting arrangement for the controls. We have a ring in the back for the aperture setting, and that's a black ring. And this camera features a 28mm f2.8 lens, which is much like the one which is found in the Olympus pin. We have a shutter speed ring in the front here, which we have a range of speeds from B and 1/15th up to 1/250th of a second. And we have a focusing tab here in the front, which has detents for close focus, say portrait, and for infinity. Or say portrait, say group photo, and then infinity. So a camera like this, you can very easily use the scale focus system. The detents allow you to focus without even looking at the focusing ring. It's a very convenient setup. We have a flash sync speed here of 1/60th of a second. Kind of cool thing about this is, we have, the quick guide marks. It makes this camera very easy to use. And half-frame cameras are very well suited for things like street or candid photography, mainly because they are compact. They are very quiet, and also the scale focus system allows you to quickly wind and take a photo without actually having to trouble with making any adjustments to the camera. Cameras like this are actually even faster than a lot of the autofocus cameras. I've tried doing street photography with things like, say, the Fuji X Pro or stuff like that, and sometimes it drives me crazy when the camera is focusing out and focusing in until it finally decides it's focused, and then you can finally take the photo, and by that time whatever you were trying to get, especially if it's something candid, they've moved on or whatever. And you can use the preset the focus and such on a camera like that, but still the camera has to power up. And I find a camera like this very simple. You simply just set the shutter, the aperture, your preset focus, and when something comes within your, like in the infantry, what you say, the kill zone, you just simply point and pull the trigger, and you pretty much, you've got a really good chance of getting what you were aiming at. So a quite good camera for that kind of photography. These are quite hard to find. This one here, I actually paid a fair amount of money for here in Japan. A lot of half-frame cameras you can get for next to nothing. But the Petri half has kind of become popular here in Japan with shooters, mainly street photographers and such. And people like its kind of quirky style. It's it's an interesting piece, and not so many of them in existence. If I look through all the local listings for Petri cameras here in Japan, there will be hundreds and hundreds of them, but out of all those hundreds of them, there might be 2 or 3 of these, so that gives you an idea of how hard they are to find. Petri made a variety of half-frame cameras over the years. This, I think, is the most interesting of them. It's not the rarest one, but it's the one which I like the most. Anyway, that's it for my video today. For those of you who would like to see more videos, I plan to be doing these more as I get more cameras in. If you'd like to see them, please subscribe. I'm always trying to get more people interested in vintage film cameras and film photography in general. And if you click the like button, that gets us a little more attention and helps with us with that purpose. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.